In 2015, an accident occurred on the Smiler roller coaster in the UK, where two ride vehicles actually collided with one another on the track and caused a series of unfortunate casualties. This event was a rare, isolated incident that was the fault of the ride operators and the maintenance team, and partially kind of the manufacturer of the ride as well, Gerstlauer. But regardless of blame, what exactly happened during the accident? So, the Smiler collided when one car that was vacant of passengers unexpectedly valleyed partway through the layout because of high winds, causing the ride to come to a complete stop. Normally, a train valleying wouldn't be a problem. However, the ride operators and maintenance team didn't recognize that a car had valleyed, so they end up dispatching a second train to run the course. However, this one would be filled with passengers. One thing led to another, the vehicle was sent through the course, and then the fully loaded train impacted the train that was stopped on the track. The collision was compared to something like a car crash, where the impact happened in a split second, but the only way to truly understand how powerful this collision was on the passengers who were riding, we have to apply dynamic principles of conservation of momentum to find a resulting impulse force. How will I achieve this? Well, first we have to look at the given and assumed information about the collision. So we know the first ride vehicle, I'm gonna call this ride vehicle A. It came to a complete stop over here on the track, so its velocity is 0, meaning it has no speed before the collision. If we look at the second ride vehicle B, we know that this car is in motion before the collision. What's its speed, however? Well, that's a little hard to figure out because of air resistance and friction, and I don't know the coefficient of kinetic friction or the air resistance acting on the car. So I'm going to make this more simple and make it an ideal case where friction and air resistance are ignored, and I'm just going to implement the vehicle's top speed of 53 miles per hour. As always, gravity is acting upon the system, and again, because I want to make this an ideal case, I'm going to treat each ride vehicle as a particle moving in a rectilinear motion, so I can more effectively use the conservation of linear momentum. If we move over to our free body diagrams, we can see that before the collision, of course, ride vehicle B, it is not moving, and there is a weight and normal force acting upon the car. If we look at the second ride vehicle, it's the exact same situation. However, this one is moving and not standing still. If we look at the free body diagram after the collision, we can see now that both cars are moving, just traveling in unison. All that's left to do is take our conservation of linear momentum equation and to sum up all the momentums before and after the collision. Remember that after the collision, both of the cars are moving at the same rate, so you just add the mass of each car and then multiply it by the velocity. Now all you would have to do is plug in mass and velocity and you will find the impulsive force, which is newtons a second. The only problem with that is I don't actually have the mass and the final velocity of the train, because surprisingly, Gerstlauer, they don't actually have the weight of the car listed on their website. So to find the mass of the train, I'm gonna have to get a little creative. So even though Gerstlauer, they don't list the mass, they do, however, list the power it takes for the roller coaster to operate. Now that value may not sound like it's important, but trust me, it's exactly what I need to find the mass. So we know roller coasters get energy through potential energy. Rides use chain lifts to bring cars to a certain height, so it can gain potential energy and then convert that into kinetic energy. So power is actually the energy required for roller coasters to reach their potential height. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take the power of the ride, 400 kilowatts, and I'm gonna convert that to mass using potential energy. First things first, I'm gonna take the 400 kilowatts and divide it by 2, because there are 2 chain lifts, so that's gonna break up the power. And then I'm gonna multiply the power by 21 seconds, because that's how much time it takes for the train to reach the top of the second lift hill. And if we multiply power by time, the power will be able to do work, and will generate a total of 4,200 kilojoules of energy. If we take that value and plug it into the potential energy formula, which is mass times gravity times height equals potential energy, along with plugging in the value for the height of the ride, 115 feet, we will get a mass of approximately 12,214 kilograms, which is about 12.2 tons. That is the mass of the empty train. the full train, we also have to add the mass of the passengers. There are 16 seats on the ride, and assuming all of them are full, the weight is going to be about 13,575 kilograms, or 13.6 tons. Assuming that we use the average weight of people living in the UK. Now, if we took the weight of people living in America, this accident could have been a lot worse. But now that we have all our mass values, the only thing we're missing is the final speed of the roller coaster. Now, it's hard to say how fast the ride is going after the collision, because all we have to go off of is this one video, or this grainy security camera footage. So the best method I have is just standard distance divided by time, and if I do that, I get a speed of around 13 miles per hour. How did I get that number? Well, if I look at the video and do a weird side-by-side on Google Maps, I see that the car traveled a distance of around 39 feet, and it took about 3 seconds for it to travel that distance. So, in an ideal world, it's going 13 miles per hour after the collision. But now that we have everything, we go back to our conservation of momentum formula, and we take all our values and plug them all in, and we get a final impulsive force of around 64,720 newtons a second, which is about 14,550 pounds of force. That's the equivalent force of a pickup truck rear-ending you at a stop full force. Now remember, this is an ideal scenario, so the number I gave you is not accurate. All this number represents is the worst possible case for the riders. In an ideal case, it ensures that no energy is lost. Not from air, not from friction, and it assumes that all the power required is strictly reserved for the chain lift. It doesn't take into account of all the other power sources the ride uses. This version focuses on 100% efficiency, so even though this number, it looks bad, in reality, it should be lower. But no matter how you slice it, it's undeniable that the Smiler accident was painful and should have never happened.